Hey, deserving listeners, including you, deserving listener. Talking to you. Let's watch this show together.
That's fair. But when was the last time you had sex?
I don't know.
So it's been that long.
It's been a while.
Which is fine.
But
like,
we weren't hooked up, but like.
He, I think, is avoiding the question, which I can't know. Also, if he were to be avoiding, I don't know what he would be avoiding. Is he avoiding just talking about it because it's like, I don't want to get into that? Or did he have sex 3 months before and he thinks that's a point against him? Or he had never had sex before, Lauren? I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
Other than that, it was a while.
is that the issue
No.
that they're having? Then why do you care?
My sister.
I know. Well, I remember you telling me that she was going to be hard to win over. Did you?
It's not that she's hard to win over. It's just really important to me that she approves of what I do. She was not a fan of me doing this at all.
Yeah. I think it's tempting to wonder if the sister is even close to the way he's describing it. Take it from me, there's a pretty good, if I were to put money down, I would say there was at least 60% accuracy in the way that he's laying it out. I can't know that, but I've treated people in this category before, and he talks about it the way that they talk about it. He could be distorted, he could be making it up, who knows, but it is, and it does totally fit with the under-functioning aspects that he has exhibited. For under-functioners, for dependent people, for people with incompetence schema, they will always seek out an over-functioner. They are like a parasite. That's a funny word. Symbiosis is the better word. They can only exist in symbiosis with an over-functioner. And the ideal puzzle piece is the codependent over-functioner has similar traumas or related traumas that result in them feeling like they're nothing if they're not taking care of someone who constantly needs to be taken care of. And so the codependent person also doesn't know who they are, also has a lot of issues with anger, also has a lot of issues with pain and trauma and attachment security. But through this configuration that's very predictable, and each person plays their part, each person follows the script constantly, there is some semblance of closeness. But it always has a major barrier and asterisk to it because it's like parent and child, right? Some of you may have married in a configuration like this. Some of you probably are in a marriage or a romantic relationship that is like this. You're either the underfunctioner or you're the overfunctioner. So it can be managed in couple therapy with someone that understands this, but it is very frustrating. And the overfunctioner can come across like a dominant, and sometimes they are a controlling person, but often it takes two to tango, if the overfunctioner tries to pull, sometimes the overfunctioner will go to therapy and they will learn to not overfunction, and the underfunctioner will get real upset and try to pull them back in because of all the reasons I've been saying. Anyway, so there's a good chance that the sister is engaging in this, also comes from trauma herself, and was probably parentified from an early age, maybe even parentified over him at an early age. I don't know. There's no evidence of that, but there's a good possibility of that. One of the hallmarks of dependent personality is that when there is a breakup from an over, say there's a divorce, for example, or the overfunctioner just can't take it anymore or whatever, or a death, then that underfunctioner is on a very focused soul mission. They have one thing on their minds emotionally, and that is find an overfunctioner, because they cannot. In fact, one of the configurations of the overfunctioner underfunctioner is abusive. In a marriage, you'll have the overfunctioner who's abusive physically, emotionally, financially, right? Because this overfunctioner knows how to pay the bills, and the underfunctioner does not. Then if the underfunctioner, as an abuse victim, manages to get out, right, because they reach out for help, they go to therapy, or there's a crime and the police are called and it's down the road. So the underfunctioner manages to get out, and we all celebrate, right? We go, oh, okay, they've extracted themselves. Okay, all good. Let's move on. No. The underfunctioner, or the abuse victim, if they also have dependent personality disorder, it's being abused is horrible, right? But often not having an overfunctioner to do everything for you is way more suffering. There's so much anxiety, and they believe that they aren't competent. And the abusive person solidified that idea, right? But they had that idea going into that relationship. And they might be even more incompetent, especially if it was a long-term relationship, meaning that they haven't been given a chance to learn skills to live on their own or be independent. Even just thinking independently will be hard for them. And if they were gaslit, okay. I'm so incompetent, I can't even judge reality. Okay. So the risk is, and we know this from research, that abuse victims will go back frequently because of that reason. You think, why would you go back to a horrible situation? Because not every abuse victim has dependent personality. In fact, it's probably a smaller percentage. But one of the reasons why they go back is because being on their own, having no sister to tell you what to do, is way worse than even being in an abusive relationship. Because if you're in an abusive relationship, it's horrible, but at least you don't have to face the world without someone telling you what to do. It's that pervasive, that they are that incompetent, and it can make you very distorted. And when you hear that part of them talking, it'll sound very strange. It'll sound like this.
She was like not a fan of me doing this at all.
Yeah.
I finally got her to come around and be like, okay, you can go.
Okay, who knows? But just listen to his narrative anyway. Just imagine that according to him, he's really working on his sister. And then eventually she says, okay, you can go. I mean, just think about that. If that's even close to the dynamic, my God. I mean, even if it was his mom, Dave's a grown man, he's 30 or something, and you have anyone saying, okay, well, all right, okay, you can go.
Not that she controls my life, but she was very emotional, and she was like, okay, you can go do the experiment and do the pods. But she was like, I'm not okay with you getting engaged through that.
Yeah, this is consistent. I won't repeat myself. We've heard him say things along these lines. This is more specific. And I think it is relevant that as he is being cornered, his first statement to avoid guilt and also to fit within his schema of incompetence, because he just doesn't even understand how to describe what he's going through. That's how pervasive these personality disorders can be. I don't know if he has this, but if I were to pursue this hypothesis, this would fit within that hypothesis. And for these individuals, they will have these frontline things that they will say, like, it wasn't my fault. What else was I supposed to do? And there's a fair amount of people, either just because they don't want to get into it or they're convinced, that will believe that and go, oh, okay. And then he's off the hook. He's like, okay, I don't have to get into my weirdness, or I don't have to explain myself because that doesn't usually go well. I don't know why it doesn't go well, but it doesn't usually. Molly is cornering him, not accepting those initial things. And so he's going deeper, and then eventually he gets to this one, which is more closer probably to the reason, but not really, right? Because the real reason is even below all of that, probably where he doesn't even know.
Do the experiment and do the pods. But she was like, I'm not okay with you getting engaged through that.
Sorry, I keep watching this because it's just so fascinating to me, but it's seemingly looking like he goes into the pods, he gets engaged, and all that crying in the pods of oh, my sister. So that would point in the direction of what I was thinking at the time, that he was at a crossroads. It's I feel in my heart, or Lauren wants to be with me, so I want to be with Lauren. But my sister, what do I do? What do I do, right? And or once things got a little interesting, he is thinking, well, it's just never going to work. And he would say that explicitly to her, to Lauren. And he also could have on the inside just resigned to that fact and didn't even try. It kind of looked that way, right?
Okay.
But again, like when I was in the pods, I was like, fuck.
I want to rewind that because Molly's reaction is like, okay, thinking, I mean, I don't know what's going on in Molly's mind, but I think what she is exhibiting is, what?
Okay with you getting engaged through that.
Okay.
But again, like when I was in the pods,
Yeah, and they will do shenanigans with the edits, especially when they will do those kind of cuts. But it kind of looked like it was consistent with her, her body language before and after that cut. I don't know. It just looks. She's just like, okay, because it just sounds so weird, Because on some level they all understand that all of their families are skeptical. So at first it might sound like that, but then when you hear him say it, you're like, wait, what? Okay. And then he says, but again, when I was in the pods, I was like, fuck it, right? Yeah. So that is him trying to do a lot of things. Who knows? But if he does have dependent personality, that could have been him trying to break free. It could have been him trying to self-sabotage so that his sister, because there's a possibility that because of all this, and especially all the hate that he's getting online and he might even be experiencing consequences at work, maybe concerns about firing him, or I don't know, he's in sales, so maybe no one wants to buy anything from him. I don't know. But at the very least, an emotional fallout. And this could have been an unconscious attempt to sabotage so that it would solidify the overfunctioning, underfunctioning. It's a mess. The unconscious self-sabotage is a way of telling the self, look what happens when you try to be competent. It's also a message to your overfunctioner of, look what happens when you don't control me further. It's all unconscious. But anyway, it's also a way of appealing to the overfunctioner in that the underfunctioner is trying to show love and compatibility with the overfunctioner by being underfunctioning because they know that the overfunctioner needs you to be underfunctioning. Anyway, it's very weird. Now, sometimes they'll call this whole thing codependency, but listen to my deep dive on codependency personality. Anyway, so it could have been him trying to break free in a very childish way, because that shouldn't be your attitude when you're trying to make an internal decision about marrying someone. It shouldn't be like, fuck it, I'm going to break free. It should be like, what do I want? But people with personality disorders almost universally, especially with severe ones, they have no idea what they feel and what they want. Regardless if it's narcissism, if it's borderline, if it's dependent, they inherent to their upbringing and development, they have a disconnect from their emotions that can be connected with. It takes a lot of time. But anyway, so it could be that. It could be, again, self-sabotage. It could be him trying to grow, realizing I got to do stuff on my own. And maybe it even was. I don't know. It's possible that this whole thing could be either a solidification of the dysfunction, as I've been mentioning, or it could even be a way for him and his sister to reevaluate things. A lot of things are possible.
I was like, fuck it. I'm like, no one's telling me what to do. I know what I'm doing. It's my life. Like, this is what I want. Her interpretation of like this whole thing was I was going to end up with a girl that was on it for the wrong reasons.
Do you know who fucking Lauren is?
And it's so interesting, right? He is enmeshed with his overfunctioner, meaning that the boundary emotionally and practically is blurred. And she, the sister, according to him, was convinced that whoever it is that you get engaged to is going to be fake, is going to be in it for the wrong reasons, is going to be deceptive or manipulative. You can't trust them. And then as soon as he gets engaged, immediately, gets engaged in the pods, they have the hallway, they're whisked away. They don't get to see each other for a few days. They see each other at the getaway, and immediately he is suspicious. You're trying to deceive me. You can't be trusted. His sister has said nothing to him. That's what enmeshment does. It follows you.
one of the most genuine, best people
I agree with you.
that I have met.
Lauren's not that girl.
She's okay, but then why
Lauren's
wouldn't
not that
you
kind of
allow
girl.
her to introduce you?
Trust me, I'm working on it.
Don't you think if you are in a situation where you're ready to be married or you're ready to like even introduce a girlfriend, you're like gonna defend that person?
Of the confrontations that happen at the all-cast party, I can't think of a better one than this. Molly starts off being kind and sharp, but soft at the same time, and is, just calmly in Molly's way, just continuing to probe. I think she is speaking language that he cannot comprehend. She's saying things that would be in the category of someone who understands the landscape, because looked at if you assume that Dave does not have some sort of characterological issue, which, we don't know if he does or doesn't, then this would be the question you'd ask of, well, if you really love someone, wouldn't you go to bat for them? Wouldn't you really work? Wouldn't you really try? Wouldn't you really put in the work and fight for them? Really try to convince your family otherwise, at least introduce them, let them get to know her. That would be the rational thing, right? That would be what you would expect of, so we've seen that many times on this show. But she's talking to someone that is on another planet in all likelihood. And it kind of looks that way, doesn't it? I mean, I don't know what planet he's on. I have an hypothesis about that. But if he's answering these questions truthfully, which is quite possible, he's on another planet.
And no.
It's not that easy.
So are you in love with Lauren?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what's the fucking problem? Like, put her on FaceTime.
There's a lot of problems.
But put her on FaceTime when the cameras are down.
Yeah. I think Molly has had a couple of drinks, which is fine. And I would be saying the same thing, a couple drinks in or not. This is the practical thing. I, in my mindset, would not imagine this would actually work. But if something's going to work, this might be the thing. It's like, well, if you're in love, then let's just do it. Get him on FaceTime. It's that easy. He could have done that at any point. So I doubt it's going to happen. Or if somehow Molly gets him to do it, I imagine he would sabotage or something.
And
It's not that easy.
Okay. I don't believe that. I think you're making
do.
excuses.
I'm not.
I just feel like if anyone met Lauren, they would love her.
That's what I've been saying for weeks.
If you wanted it to happen, you would make it happen. I will always have Lauren's back.
Yeah, I think that's the time to pull the ripcord, and she's doing so. So I've heard that people are really attacking him online, which I want to advocate for that not to happen for any cast member, or at least the vast, vast majority. I mean, I'm trying to think of a single cast member on Love is Blind that deserves it. I can't think of any cast member off the top of my head. I can't imagine that I would, even if I looked at my notes. You can have your thoughts. You can talk amongst your friends, but to go after them, to go into their DMs, to comment on their videos, to publish content that they might come across or might be sent to them that is, at the very least, trying to hurt their feelings and might even be clinically or philosophically extremely dubious, like labeling them or diagnosing them or something. Especially if it's things like psychopathy or manipulation or psychopathic lying, or these things are possible, but there are other possibilities, and as long as there's a lot of other possibilities, then we can't know. So I wonder, though, if what's being triggered in people is that he comes across it wouldn't be irrational for Lauren or for viewers to see one angle, which is, I guess, the surface, which is what's happening, but it's not what's underneath that is interpreted correctly all the time, but that he is setting the relationship up for failure, even though on paper or verbally he is claiming that he's all in. And then he breaks up with her and claims that it's not his fault and makes Lauren out to be the one to blame. and even slut shames her in this really weird way. And also there's this very clear message that Lauren is not good enough for him. He hasn't said that, but he says that his sister would say that. And it wouldn't be hard to interpret it as he might believe it too. And also the way that he talks about this whole thing, that it's it can come across as cold, right? So if we have anyone in our history, particularly one of our parents, but also a past romantic partner that seemingly did that to us, then, it's going to trigger and then we're going to displace, when in reality, we have a lot of personal work. That's all that I see, by the way, when I see bullying. And I'm not using that word lightly, of cast members. I just see a bunch of people that need to go to therapy or need to focus on something else in therapy. They need to focus on whatever's motivating this behavior, clearly, right? Because hurt people. And there's a lot of cast members that are being hurt constantly. The vast majority of those doing the hurt are hurting and deserve to recover. And just creating new hurt is, at the very least, not helpful to the individual, but it is also immoral in my view. All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle. Thanks for joining me. Everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.